I honestly get why colors like this are everywhere nowadays. This color is trendy. It's called Cavern Clay SW7701. I'm here to review it because this was requested by one of you, one of our channel members. Thanks for clicking that join button. I try to do my best to answer all of your colorful prayers, but I'm only one man. A man named James. Welcome back to the Paint People. This is Color Quickie, where I quickly go through a paint color with enough detail necessary. Basically, I'll tell you the need-to-know information about it so you can effectively use it in your home. And as a fun, cute little bonus, I also handpicked 3 color pairings that you can use alongside it. And then as a bonus, I guess, trim colors. 2 of them for your baseboards, your doors, your frames, any woodwork you might have. Red's everywhere, baby! Color trends are maybe not for everyone, but what we can say for sure is that warmth is really making a big comeback in the paint world. Gray had its moment, so did white. The cool coastal colors are still pretty cool, but now more and more people are embracing the idea of not only reintroducing paint colors that are actually colorful, but we see a bias towards the warmer side of things. It's not a coincidence that warmer colors that are based in red and yellow and orange can actually make a space feel a little more warm and cozy when used properly. This brings me to Cavern Clay SW7701, which is a Sherwin Williams color that I would firmly plant in the dark color category. It does a wonderful job at staying dark and rich, but at the same time, it provides you with a beautiful, positive vibrancy to it that I think is really interesting and not cave-like at all to me. Because even though, like a cave, it does contain a bit of brown within it, it's really all about that red and that orange that carry this color to a really warm-hearted and positive level. I honestly get why colors like this are everywhere nowadays. They're fun, they really stand out, but at the same time, they maintain this grounded quality that helps them feel kind of down to earth and somehow relatable. Cavern Clay also really looks awesome behind plant life, so if you want to use it as a backdrop for your birds of paradise, the plant, not the birds themselves, you'll see this gorgeous complementary exchange between that fiery red and then that rich green in your plants, which is fun. These darker, warmer colors all seem to have a bit of a duality to them, I find, where technically with a 20 light reflectance value, that means Cavern Clay is only reflecting 20% of the light that hits it, making it dark. Technically. Do I say technically again? But even though it's dark, it still feels energetic because of that reddish orange undertone. And maybe you don't mind how dark it is because it kind of feels a bit lighter. Even with its brown aspect, its level of saturation firmly puts it in accent territory for me. Like, it's a no-brainer. And unlike other dark colors like navy blue or dark teal, I see a color like this being better suited on the first floor of a 2-story home. Very specific. Don't worry if you have a bungalow or a condo, you can still use this color. I guess what I'm meaning is I see this color more in places like bathrooms or a living room, or perhaps a kitchen as well. Not necessarily in bedrooms or hallways or anything like that. Essentially the rooms where maybe you're not spending a majority of your time in, because even though this color is comforting, I don't see it as the perfect fit for a winding down type of color. A great use for this would be on interesting woodwork, like in this picture right over here. Great use of it, because you also have that upper half of white to create a bit of a break visually, which is also continuing onto the window frames. There's just enough of Cavern Clay in this photo specifically, where it's still extremely prominent, but not totally overwhelming. The color is also drawing your eye to that wood paneling as well, which I suppose the owner really wanted to accentuate. And they have also continued it onto the baseboards, which I'm a big fan of for these colors that are really deep and rich. Sometimes you don't need a thick white line cutting the bottom of your wall in the form of baseboards. And bonus points for incorporating those orange pillows and of course that beautiful artwork on the walls. I mean, not really beautiful to me, but maybe someone else. Now, like I said, this is not a color that you would want to overwhelm your space with. It'll do a great job at drawing your attention to a specific room or a specific part of a room. It's a color that will accentuate rather than blend in like a traditional neutral color would. But sometimes you need some traditional neutrals to rely on in those more open parts of your home. And spoiler alert, I got 2 of them, plus another deep color because I'm a sicko. The first of my 3 color pairings is Believable Buff. And there's nothing unbelievably extraordinary about it. It's a beige that is described as being wheat tinged. And I just interpret that as having a little more of a gold or ochre touch, I suppose, in the undertones. So ultimately, we're left with another warm color, but this one is quite a bit lighter in comparison, with an LRV of 59. To me, and a bunch of other designers that I know, colors with a lightness score, or LRV, around 60 are pretty universally enjoyed because of that fine line of not really feeling too light or too dark in most situations. The one little difference here that I want to point out is the type of warmth in both of these colors. They're both on that side of the color temperature spectrum, but while Cavern Clay is more orange and red, Believable Buff is a bit more golden and yellow, although in a more subtle and lighter package. So for a space that you're designing where you want the whole feel to stay nice and toasty, you can combine these two where Believable Buff is the main color and then Cavern Clay becomes that supporting accent color. Or maybe in connecting rooms like a living and dining room where you can have one color in one room and then the other in the other. There must have been an easier way to say that. And the other and the other and the other. For everyone else that maybe wants a neutral that kind of blurs the line between warm and cool for a more, I guess, contemporary look, I would recommend Egret White as the second color pairing. This is kind of a pebble white, I like to call it, meaning it's a color that has a fairly soft, pleasant light gray, and it does seem to straddle the line between warm and cool. It'll seem much cooler next to the other colors we've talked about so far, but ultimately what you're getting here is another lighter color to pair with Cavern Clay, one that will feel much more clean and straightforward. Color number 3 is good old Waterloo. Any ABBA fans in the building? I know I am. I guess that makes one. I can't help but love a nice, deep, oceanic blue and a fiery terracotta orange. And because we have two colors that I would sort of call accents, you have to treat them as such. If you were feeling really rambunctious and you wanted to paint your bedroom Waterloo, for example, then maybe you can have a little bit of a Cavern Clay in the form of your bedding. And not the actual duvet cover, but maybe a couple pillows here and there. Or another idea is you can use Cavern Clay as your front door, maybe. And then Waterloo can be the mudroom as you walk in. Because we have to remember, we're building a color palette here for your whole house, or your home, or wherever you live. So don't feel pressure to incorporate every little color in the same space. But now that we have the main colors out of the way, let's get to the trim colors, which of course are for your baseboards primarily, but can also be on your doors and your window frames and any other woodwork. Whitetail is my light trim choice, and it shares a little bit of that yellow undertone from Believable Buff, but it does have a much higher lightness value. This color will seem pretty close to white in practical use, so usually a good default choice. If you wanted a dark trim color, I would go with Cyberspace, which is a beautiful, cool charcoal gray that pretty much feels black. But you will notice that subtle, cool touch that will really pop against the warmth in Cavern Clay. And Believable Buff as well. Believable Buff. Man, Sherwin Williams. Making it tricky for me. Here's the palette all together. Let me know what you think. And let's get to this one next because I'm just loving Sherwin Williams these days, except for their names of some of their colors. Maybe that's a me problem.